Special thanks to these companies for being long-term partners of this channel.
Well, it's finally winter, and I hope you all had a good holiday. We're going to be doing a bunch of modifications still this winter. I'm still stoked to be continuing to work on the vehicle. Obviously, snow adds an interesting element as you're trying to work on your vehicle, but it's not going to slow me down. So today we're going to be talking about the Finn Fab molle panels. I think Finn Fab makes an awesome product, and I've wanted to get a pair of these for a while. But I just haven't pulled the trigger on them, and I was lucky enough to receive them as a gift this holiday season, and so that's what we're going to be installing today. And I'll do a little bit unboxing, we'll throw them in there, I'll give you any tips and tricks while I was installing them, and then I'm going to kind of explain at the end why I decided to actually get some.
So the Finn Fab molle panel kit is solely sold on Yoda Mafia's website as far as I know. And it comes with two panels. You can choose to get them bare steel or powder coated. They're 1/8 inch steel CNC cut molle panels. And then they come with two brackets, one for each side, as well as two different spacers. There's a longer spacer that's about 3 inches long for the hole closer to your second row. And then there is a spacer that is used for the rear of your trunk, where it's going to screw into the same location as your cargo net hook. And then lastly, the kit comes with 4 screws. These have a Allen key head on them, and they have a nylon locking nut for the back. There's also provided washers for the front and rear of the bracket. One very unique feature about these panels is they come with a cut open slot. It looks like it's about 3 squares wide, or long, depending upon how you look at it. And this is used for a Blue Seas panel, which I think is ingenious and an awesome way to add some electrical ports to the rear of your trunk without having to cut out your wheel well plastic.
So obviously each rear window has its own panel, and there's a bracket that hooks into one of these rear hooks on the ceiling. I'll show that in a second here. And each of these brackets has these 2 screws and then a washer for each side, and then on the back there's 2 nylon nuts and 2 washers. So the reason I have this laid out like this, because we're going to tighten these down to about as tight as we can go and figure out where this bracket needs to go. Maybe I'll use a piece of painter tape or something, because it's very challenging to get behind this panel to hold the nylon nut on the back to completely tighten it down. So that being said, we're going to kind of line this all up. I'm going to mount this bracket up to the spot. So the longer spacered bolt we will be putting right here under the window, and then in the back where the cargo net screw used to be, we're going to be putting this shorter spacer with this bolt. So the spacer is going to go on the back side of this panel, and then we're going to put this small washer on the front side of the panel, and then tighten it down using the Allen key for each of these bolts. This is the easy part. This is just going to take a little bit of planning so that you're not angry at yourself trying to hold a wrench through the molle panel on the back. So let's get this kind of loosely installed on the window, and then we can figure out exactly where we need to tighten these bolts down and then anchor it permanently. Okay, so like I said, what we're going to basically do here is try and line this up as best we can. Now, just to make a couple other recommendations, this bracket here, you're going to want to stick behind the panel. I think they're identical for both sides, so I'm not too worried about switching those in and out. And then I don't really know quite where to guess with this. I think I'm just going to try and center it up in the middle and then tighten this up. So I believe the nylon bolts are a 10 millimeter, and then these front bolts are, I think, a 2.5 or a 3. So to get all the spots on the plastics open and ready to put in the hardware that comes with the Finn Fab panel, what you're going to do is you're going to remove this plastic cap from up front there. And then you're going to pull out this bolt. So, and this bolt is a Phillips bolt. Now, it sounds kind of stupid, but you can either use a Phillips screwdriver or you can use a 10 millimeter socket. I don't believe we can put these hooks back after we attach the panel because it's got this little plastic like spoke on the back, or I don't know, this dowel, however you want to call it. So these plastic hooks that in the stock vehicle sit right here, you're gonna have to take off. To get access to that bolt, it's got this little plastic door. You just pull that down, and then you have access to taking out your 10mm bolt. So all of the bolts here are 10mm. So you pull that out, you're good to go. And then right here where these hooks are, I was calling them the cargo net hook because that's what they are. You take that little hook out by just rotating it clockwise, I believe, and then it exposes a big bolt right here like this with a huge Phillips head. So, and I would recommend using a Phillips head that's got a really wide Phillips or cross, because these are probably easy to strip if you use a small Phillips head. So that's really all you have to do. Take out 3 bolts, tighten these down, and it gets mounted right up. I haven't put in the little threaded rivet nuts or whatever you would call them yet, because I'm just not quite sure how I'm configuring it yet. So first I'm going to get them installed and then go from there. Okay, so I got this installed, and honestly my approach was okay, but it wasn't perfect, and so I want to kind of give you a couple tips as to what I would do differently. So right down here there's a channel, and we are maxed out all the way to the front on the channel, which means ideally this could maybe slide forward slightly, but in the rear we're also maxed out in the back. So right now there's not a whole lot of flexibility. And right up here, I mounted these bolts almost in the middle. They might be slightly favored to the left. And this bolt up here, the angle can kind of shift around, and the hole's big enough so the bolt is only going to hold once it's tight. Otherwise, it's pretty sloppy on there. So how I would recommend mounting these is just tighten these up all the way in the center, and it should be good as far as an orientation goes. And then when you mount these, what you probably would benefit from is like someone helping hold it or something. But put these bolts in first, because there's a lot of play in these bolts, but you don't want to cross thread them in the mounting locations on the vehicle. And so being able to kind of maneuver and manipulate the whole panel so that these bolts can go in correctly is really nice. So what I did is I put in each of these bolts first, and I tightened them down just enough so they would hold. And then I started this bolt up here. And then what I made sure to do was, tighten this down about halfway so it's got a good hold, and then tighten these 2 down all the way. I think I started with this one in the back completely tight before I did the rest of those, as tight as they would go. But now it's pretty solid and stuck in there. Now, the reason that I recommend you tighten these down all the way is like I said, quote unquote, finger tightened them, or just tighten them all the way down with a nylon lock nut so that you could still maybe slide it a little bit, but it was fairly tight. So once I had done that and I had tightened all this down, I tried to get a wrench behind here to tighten these. It is doable, but it's very challenging. If you do need to do that, just put your wrench in through here, and then you're gonna have to kind of hold it through these holes, which is what I did, and it worked out all right.
So I think one of the biggest things that people are probably thinking through when they're thinking about buying some panels like these are they really practical? Are they even really necessary? And I kind of struggled with this a little bit too, and then initially decided that they were totally worth it, because if you have a Tacoma or you have a Tundra or some other truck, a lot of times they have some sort of bed rack in the back of their truck on their bed, obviously, which they can throw a couple of quick access items onto, which can just be super handy. And I think what's awesome about these is they're on the inside of the vehicle rather than on the outside. So you can actually lock them really easily, and you can mount certain things to them that are just nice quick access things. Like I've got my big MyMedic kit right there. That's the MyFac large. I heavily recommend you have a MyMedic kit. I've got a discount code below if you're interested in one of those. But you can also get a bunch of different mounts. Like you can get a paper towel mount, or if you want to get some sort of trauma kit, or you want to mount your axe, or you want to mount, maybe some cooking supplies, or whatever it may be that you want to mount, maybe some tools, maybe you want to mount your air compressor hoses there. whatever it may be, you can mount them there and they're gonna be super quick access, which is really handy. So the quick access is really awesome, and also it's just an additional place to be able to store some gear that's not in a drawer and maybe easier to get to, but also it's just nice to be able to lock this stuff in your vehicle. A lot of guys will throw fire extinguishers or things like this on the exterior of your vehicle in a similar type of mounting solution, and they're just not locked. And so if you like to keep them in your vehicle at all times, you're going to and from work or the store or whatever it may be, this is a really secure way to be able to store your stuff. And I know that some people maybe were worried about these because they're like, well, it's kind of storing your things right in front of the window. Now people can see them and they'll think, oh, I should steal this. And a valid point, but I think at least with a glass or a locked vehicle, it's harder to steal than if it were just mounted to a bed rack on a Tacoma, let's just say. So I kind of can see that argument, but also it could be much worse than it is right there. Not to mention, you could always put something behind the molle panel to block the view. You can see in from the sides that there are molle panels there, so maybe throwing a black sheet or something on the back side of the molle panel would block people's view and make it kind of look like they're tinted really dark. But either way, I think it's a really awesome storage solution, and I like the Finn Fab ones in particular because they have these awesome threaded mounts so you can bolt things to the panels. Obviously, they're also just like a normal molle panel, so you can use any sort of Velcro products. But there's also just a ton of different universal solutions out there that are going to be compatible with this. And it also has that awesome cutout for a Blue Seas power panel, which you could wire up to a dual battery, or you could wire it up to a external battery like a Blue Eddy. There's tons of different options on how you might want to wire that up. But I just like being able to have that panel. Not to mention, one thing I really like too is these come down just the perfect height, because with my height of my storage system back here, which is I believe around 8 or 8.5 inches tall, and then with putting a memory foam mattress on top of it, I still think that these panels are going to be high enough to sit above the bed, which I just really like. And if I'm going to have power ran to those panels, it'd be a nice place where I could mount my phone and charge my phone while sleeping inside the vehicle or something like that. So it's still a very nice storage solution that's compatible with all of my current setup, and I'm really stoked to be able to use it. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. It means a lot if you made it to the end of the video, and if this video brought you any sort of value, consider giving it a like, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. And I'm really excited for 2022. So that being said, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.